more on the kind of 10-minute end of things, which is fine. But I think I'm going to be slightly I am going to take the moment, because it's our birthday, and if you can't be mildly self-indulgent on your birthday, when can you be? So I'm going to pick out a couple of things from our history, because from talking to some people, they don't really know the very beginnings of PAS, because it's a very, very long time ago now. I'm not going to talk about where we're going to go next, but instead I'm going to leave you with kind of 3 ideas, and there are 3 ideas that I hope will help you make the most out of this conference. So where do I start with this? I mean, we really are 20. We were born out of trying to make a significant reform to the planning system. Local development frames came in, structure plans went out. You've already heard the image of the library and how easy it would be to take that little bit out and that little bit in. The bit I can remember, and this might just be, I might have dreamt this, but I remember there being kind of a yin and a yang kind of diagram, and you had the LDF over there, and you had the sustainable community strategy over there, and it was really about forcing planning to be the spatial expression of a community strategy. And it made sense, and there was that horrible thing with the people shaking hands on the front of it. Some of that I might have made up. But even then, we were part of a package. Like the local government and local government part of it was a really important part of all of this. But we were accompanied by the planning portal, who took care of the technology side of things. Atlas, welcome back, Atlas, about sites and delivery. And this quote on the screen, this is when I joined PAS at about this time. And I can remember our boss at the time said again and again, we'd kind of go into meetings with the government offices or loads of other people who no longer exist. And she would say to me, our job is to explain to people, probably again and again and again, who want this to be like a process problem. All we've got to do is to fix a process problem, and actually it's not a process problem. It's a problem owned by people and politicians and hearts and minds and that kind of thing. And I think that's been a really useful grounding for me, sort of, keep me honest, I think, all this time. All right, I'm going to duck over a couple of slides. Has anyone played with the Wayback Machine? Does that make any sense to you? If you want to go back and remember what happened in the good old days, like there's an internet archive which takes snapshots of how the world used to be at various points. So this is, it's not the first version of the website I could find, because the first version of the website is really boring and just sort of test and sort of on silly banners. This is the second version of the website, and it was like putting on a comfy pair of slippers looking back at this website, because we've got peer reviews. Honestly, peer reviews, they remain, honestly, I'm not just paid to say this, they're the best possible thing that we do. They're brilliant to do, brilliant to be on the team and to kind of deliver them, but even better to receive them, because you kind of get a mandated program of change. Fantastically powerful. Many of you in the room have been the recipient of peer review. Go and sell the idea to someone. Leadership Academy, taking counsellors away from being on show. We're doing a Leadership Academy the weekend after next. It's one of the reasons why I love counsellors, because I meet them in this brilliant environment, away from camera, away from people who vote for them, and we can actually have some really, really honest conversations, and we can really, in that space, cover a lot of ground and equip them to do actually what I think is a really difficult job. Skills framework makes it there, and there's a little bit I've highlighted in red where we're talking about compulsory training for people sitting on planning committees. This stuff is timeless, isn't it? And the next version I could find, it's even got local government reorganisation on it. So while these things, and it does feel like a slightly overwhelming list of things that are on our radar, many of these are not actually new, and we've been there or thereabouts for many, many, many years. Right, I am going to do the dangerous thing of picking from all the many things that we've done over the years, a bit like picking your favourite child. I'm going to talk about 3, for me, and they're slightly personal, 3 product highlights, but I have also asked the team, so this isn't just total whimsy on my part. The Soundness Self-Assessment Toolkit, which we obviously call the Sasatica. It started back in the olden days when people were really, really scared about the risk associated with owning a failing plan. And it was a checklist. It was a checklist, and it was also, I think, one of the things that we were trying to do to equip people in planning departments, going, you got this, you can do this, you don't need to you need to buy this in. The planning system needs to be doable by planners. We can't make it so specialist and so difficult that we've got to outsource the whole thing. Very much a culture all the way through PAS stuff is actually, you got this. The next favourite child we called the crystal ball. Again, more than 10 years ago, it grew out of the idea that sometimes people in councils are too busy to notice they're 5 quarters through the performance regime, and if they don't do something, they're going to be on the designation naughty step, and it's really hard then to get back off the naughty step. And what they sometimes needed is someone like Pete. Some of you may have received a call from Pete, and he'll come and put his arm around you and go, you lost those 2 minerals and waste appeals. Well, and just to stop you getting into trouble. And over time, it's grown and expanded, and it's got a whole load of stuff. We basically go around the country, we find good practice, we steal it, and we stick it in our kind of website, so that when you're thinking, what does a good delegation agreement look like? Come and steal one of Pete's. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is probably my own personal albatross. I met someone a few years ago who said, you know what? You're going to go down in history as the person who made everyone do timesheets, and they hate you for it. So that was me. But actually, on the bright side of that, for me, that feels like the start where we actually started to have a real clear sense of the department and the work in progress and the conveyor belt, the relentless conveyor belt of planning applications, and how easy it is. If you kind of take your eye off it, you end up with a big backlog, and it's very difficult to get things back on track, isn't it? And this was the start of everyone kind of thinking in a bit more of a business-like way about the business of running a planning department. Right, next steps. You don't get to see next steps. This is my kind of filler. I'm gonna finish with my 3 ideas. And some of this, again, I think this is kind of heartfelt stuff from someone who's been long in the game. I love the fact that you're here. I love the fact that you're here because you are separately all trying to do something that's really difficult. And I think by coming together and being part of a kind of community of practice, which is a phrase that we used to use a lot, we don't use it anymore, but I think it's a really helpful phrase. But yes, it's all slightly different, and yes, all of your environments are slightly different, but you're all actually involved in doing a different thing, and I think it works best when we operate as a network, when you're prepared to kind of network and give and receive to each other. And I'll make no kind of apologies for naming peer review again. If you've not become a peer, you really should. Your expertise is worth more than you think it is. It's one of the loveliest things that I do, honestly, is a peer challenge. And also, it is, if you're about to become a new head of service, get yourself a peer challenge, honestly. It is brilliant. And I suppose this is something I whinge about, so I'm going to put £1 in the whinge jar briefly. This, which involves you taking the time out, having a train ticket, blocking out the diary, is important and powerful, and it happens less and less. And I personally fought for a long side that I didn't really want to go online. I didn't really like these Teams meetings. I didn't really like people tapping away like this because I think you can achieve a lot more by being in the same room. But I think I've lost that battle. And our B&G Basecamp, actually, I was looking at it the other day. So those, you might not really understand what this is. It's an online thing that we run. Originally, it was set up for Biodiversity Net Gain, which felt very much like a burning deck, and there was lots of anxiety about it. And now it's like a self-sustaining model where actually it's not really about us in PAS being expert and answering questions. Like almost all of the traffic on that is people talking to each other. It's a fantastic advert for how wonderful a load of people are contributing their skills and expertise. And so that we're about to start a few more. Well, the next one I think we're going to do is if you're in charge of a local plan. Quite a scary place to be. Wouldn't it be nice to be alongside other people who are also thinking about, do we go for 2026? Do we not go for 2026? What's the, all that kind of really difficult kind of questions. So that's my first kind of thing. Be of the sector. Be of the sector. Second thing I want to talk about was digital. I was quite surprised to see, when I looked at our original work programme, how strong digital was, even then, 20 years ago. And at some point, it is going to happen. It feels a little bit like it's the hype has been going, building and building and building and building, and then one day we'll just wake up one day and the world will be different. And for me, I think this is my suggestion, that you need to find someone who is part of your team, who you trust, who understands what you're trying to do to help you on that journey. I don't think you can buy this in. I don't think those of you that think or are being told that you can go out and buy the AI thing that will make everything okay. I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think it's only going to work with you understanding what it can do for your team, for your community, to do the job that you need to do in the place. And I've kind of slightly naively perhaps outlined, yes, it's not, data is an enabling kind of part of the story, but there's this kind of chain that ends up with actually making sometimes an emotional connection to people about what it is that you're trying to do and making a story about it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I know that many of you are already kind of hearing, coming down the kind of the hierarchy about people being sold, well, you can have some licenses for Copilot or whatever it is, but each license for Copilot is worth 3 job savings. And I suppose I just want to kind of counsel this with some of my old dusty data that I blew the dust off the data. So this is the 2012-13 benchmark that we did. Do you remember postcards? Have you any postcards? Where for every planning application, this is when we posted things to each other, for every planning application that went out, there was a little postcard that went to your applicants, and we had, how do you think of your service, and could it have done better, and which aspects of a service do you really find important? I've kind of made it a bit bigger to make it easier to read. Top 3 are having a chance to amend an application, the ability to talk to a planner, and access to a case officer. So if you are being told the story, well, you can automate it, you can AI it, and you can give them an answer immediately from a machine, your customers are going to hate you. So you can't ignore the AI, and you can't ignore the benefits that can bring you, but somehow you've got to make it work for your customers, and that, I think, is going to be slightly tricky. My last point I want to leave you with is back to this idea about strategic planning and functional geography and all of those lovely kind of plannery things. I think there's a different angle to this a little bit, which is the organisational development angle. I think many of you are going to work for organisations that are going to go through enormous changes. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, there's going to be HR processes, there's going to be some really difficult things, exciting things, and where we're going to get to, I'm sure, is going to be really a great place. But in the short term, it's going to be difficult, and also your planning department is going to be one department amongst many, many, many others, all going through the same process at the same time. You're not going to be allowed to be special, and you're not going to allowed to be talking about functional geography while other people are talking about, well, how do we get a unified employee strategy or whatever. So a little while ago, we took the advantage of having done some peer reviews with brand new unitaries, and those about to be unitaries, to kind of draw out some ideas for it. I recommend you go and have a look at it. It's the principle of, don't learn these lessons the hard way, learn them from people who've already learnt them. And I suppose the other thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this is, for some of you, leading this change, you'll have gone through change before, and there's a confounding factor now, which is that you're going to be talking to largely remote teams, virtual teams, and some of the old tricks that you learnt when someone took you through a big organisational change about being able to walk through the office and clap your hands and get a sense of how everyone was. You're not going to have them. So it's a really, really interesting organisational development kind of thing to get your head around. Really nothing to do with the planning, I suppose. So those are my 3 ideas: resilience, digital, and the implications of managing change arising from local government reform. And those, I didn't intend them to be, but Martin pointed out that actually those are adverts for 3 of the breakouts that we're doing tomorrow, which proves how brilliantly designed this whole process has been. Thank you. So I think I am going to end there.